Now, most of the early so-called church fathers did not claim to have the gifts. That's because they believed that not every Christian was so gifted. So we have here the testimony of one Hippolytus of Rome. He's writing in the 2nd century. It's not necessary that every one of the faithful should cast out demons, raise the dead, or speak with tongues. Ambrose, who was a bishop of Milan, modern-day Italy, writing around the 4th century, and he said that the whole of the divine gifts cannot exist in each man or each person. Yet, many church fathers had a fondness for the gift of predictive prophecy. There were the so-called Montanists of the so-called new prophecy movement of the 2nd century, for example, who believed that they alone were spiritually gifted. Yet, Irenaeus, another early so-called church father writing in the 2nd century, described this group, wretched men indeed, who wished to be pseudo-prophets, who set aside the gift of prophecy from the church, holding themselves aloof from the communion of the brethren. And then there's another statement by a group called the Apollinarians, and they said that the leader of this group, called Montanus, supposes he might at first act by the operation of God, but whether it were so, or by that of the devil transformed, it was in such a manner that nobody was able to discern, because both his life and doctrine were holy and blameless. The church historian Eusebius described Montanus' spiritual experience as a sudden frenzy and ecstasy. He raved and began to babble and utter strange things, prophesying in a manner contrary to the constant custom of the church handed down by tradition from the beginning. And then we have this testimony from Origen, writing around the 3rd or 4th century, who quotes a pagan writer called Celsus, who described Montanus' prophets, who go on to add, he said, incomprehensible, incoherent, utterly obscure utterances, the meaning of which no intelligent person could discover, for they are meaningless and nonsensical, and give a chance for any fool or sorcerer to take the words in whatever sense he likes. Then there was Saint Gregory, Bishop of New Caesarea, who was a former student of the Formation Origen, who was dubbed the Wonder Worker. We have this from the historian Jeff Oliver, who records that besides his normal regimen of prophesying, healing the sick, casting out demons, Gregory reportedly moved mountains, dried up lakes, redirected rivers, and banished pagan gods. Where shall I rank the great Gregory in the words uttered by him? So this is from Basil of Caesarea, one of the so-called Cappadocian fathers. Shall we not place among apostles and prophets a man who walked by the same spirit as they? By the superabundance of gifts wrought in him by the Spirit in all power and in signs and in marvels, he was styled a second Moses by the very enemies of the church.